Welcome, everyone, to the podcast of the Voice of Meaning. And we strive to interview very interesting people doing meaningful things all over the world. And I want to introduce Dr. Jeffrey Pierce. He's a lifestyle physician working together with Love.Life Telehealth. And I'm going to start out, Jeff, what are your passions? What brought you here? Why do you get up early in the morning and have this big smile that you have?
Mhm. Well, thank you, Neil, for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here and having the chance to speak with the audience. Well, let's see. Lots of places where we could start on that, but I would say that if we want to get to the nitty-gritty of being a doc and why I'm doing this and what wakes me up is helping people and helping people get healthy, and not just I don't wake up saying, man, I can't wait to prescribe some medicines or recommend some procedures. Doing lifestyle medicine is so good for my soul because I get to say, hey, I'm working with people to help show them the root of health and illness and how to sort of be in charge of their own, be the captain of their own ship. And that's really rewarding for me.
Okay, well, please tell us a little bit about your practice and what's your everyday life like?
Okay, sure. I'm a family doctor by original training, and then tacked on top of that as I did lifestyle medicine years after I got my family medicine training done. And so with my family medicine hat, I still work with young family docs in training here in Northern California who, as they go through their obstetrics and gynecology rotation. So we're up on labor and delivery. We're there greeting new babies into the world, and that's a chunk of my work and very rewarding part of it. And then another part is doing lifestyle medicine via telehealth, and actually a few home visits. Still do a little bit of that. Kind of feel like an old country doc when I do that, but doing lifestyle medicine via telehealth predominantly with Love.Life Telehealth, gives me the opportunity to speak with people California and Texas and Florida, where I have additional licenses, who are coming to me saying, hey, I heard that my habits can make a difference. What I eat and how I move can make a difference with my health. And I've got this new diagnosis of diabetes or high cholesterol or high blood pressure, and I need to do something about it. And so we get to walk through things.
In your opinion, what's the difference between family medicine and lifestyle medicine?
Well, family medicine definitely is what drew me uh, to this to the field that I chose to specialize in med school. I loved working with the family docs. They seemed like they were down to earth. They could help treat people from cradle to grave, as they say. And I was doing a lot of global medicine, or sort of helping folks in mostly in the developing world, so Latin America and then Africa after that. And I thought the role of a family doc was so great because you could sort of get plugged in anywhere and be able to help. I think a family doc is able to talk about prevention, and to also prescribe medicines, do procedures. For example, we're still doing deliveries and C-sections and things like that on my other job. And that's really rewarding work. Lifestyle medicine has this very focused approach to say, yes, we have some medicines and procedures that can do some things to help out your chronic condition. But with this extra training that we receive as we become lifestyle medicine boarded, we can really own in on, say, this is what the science says about this is a really good diet for you. This is a really good way to stay physically active. This is the importance of sleep. This is the importance of stress management, community engagement, avoidance of toxins, to a level that goes beyond what most family docs have time and training to receive. Because in the 3 years of family medicine residency training, you get some teaching on prevention, and a little bit on diet and exercise, almost none. But you're also having to learn how to treat people with heart failure in the hospital, and how to assist a surgeon in taking down an appendix and all sorts of things. And so while I am very proud to be a family doc, and am so grateful for all the family docs who are providing the primary care out there that keep this nation together, I think I appreciate the extra skills that I've gotten through lifestyle medicine, and I love being able to focus on chronic illness in a way that is really highly impactful. Because I think while modern medicine is great for fixing acute conditions, your gallbladder is infected, needs to come out, or you've got strep throat and you need some antibiotics, or pneumonia, etc. We're not great at treating chronic illness. And the reason is that for most of chronic illness, we get there by doing something maybe a little bit unhealthy every day or 3 times a day, depending on how you look at it. And then we say, okay, well, here's a pill to try to counteract some of these effects. And it turns out that the pills don't work that great, and they also tend to have side effects. So instead of saying, well, I'll talk to you for about 5 minutes on what maybe you could do to change your habits, but really let's focus on the right dose of the pill and getting this refilled and making sure insurance pays for it and all that kind of stuff. With lifestyle medicine, we can really, really, really put the importance where it needs to be, which is on our daily habits, so that we don't have to have these chronic conditions in the first place.
So would you say lifestyle medicine is more preventative medicine?
Definitely a bigger focus on preventative medicine, but then also having these skills to focus on, to a greater degree, on diet and exercise, etc., for people who already have the chronic illness, and can talk about treating and even stabilizing it and reversing it, which I think in a typical family medicine practice, you might have 15 minutes with a patient, and that's supposed to include reviewing their last visit notes and seeing them, and then finishing up the visit and prescribing them and all that kind of stuff. How can we have meaningful change in that little slot of time? It's a broken system. We're trying to find a better way to do it. We're going to have to in America, but lifestyle medicine says, hey, hold on a second. Let's not try to fix some chronic illness in a 10-15 minute appointment. So with our telehealth visits, for example, we've got 30-minute minimum, and preferably an hour-long visit. It really lets us pick apart some things that I think is key to making some changes.
So have you witnessed people reversing cardiovascular problems or diabetes?
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating. The things we get to see now with this sort of a focus on stopping the unhealthy habits, replacing them with some of the healthiest habits you can have. It's just mind blowing. It's stuff that you just weren't taught in medical school that you could see, right? In medical school, now granted, I've been out of med school since 2004, so it's coming up on 20 years. But I don't know how much the message has changed in the majority of typical medical schools around the US. But you're just sort of taught, diabetes isn't really reversible. You just kind of have to get them to take their medicines every day without fail. But then when we see patients who are taking their medicines the way we're prescribing them to, still they need higher doses, and they are encountering the side effects, and they need pills to counteract the side effects. And so when you are able to work with somebody and they change their diet radically, and they are getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep, and they're getting 150 minutes or more of physical exercise a week, all of a sudden you see type 2, pre-diabetes going away, type 2 diabetes going away in the vast majority of cases. blood pressure coming down, and cholesterol coming down, heart disease coming down. I mean, we're getting ready to have a 7-day kickstart reboot, health reboot, plant-based reboot in our county as kind of a wellness activity for voluntary for some of the staff at the county hospital where I work. And we chose this. It's a 7-day reboot, and the reason that would seem crazy and just preposterous. I think if you had told me this 10 years ago, that in 7 days you could see somebody's cholesterol normalize and somebody's fasting sugars come down to a more normal range. But you can do that. You can see that. I mean, Rochester Lifestyle Medicine has a 15-day kickstart. Rip Esselstyn and his 7-day plant strong kind of engine 2 diet kind of kickstart. You can see these changes, metabolic changes in 7 days, where you won't see them for years if you keep eating the same way and taking your diabetes medicine. It's just putting a band-aid on it and not getting to the real disease.
Okay. Are you worried that if you're too successful, you'll be out of business because
Ah,
your patients won't need you anymore?
what a great idea and possibility. And in a perfect world, sure, I would love it. I would just garden. I wouldn't. I would say, okay, my job is done, and I don't need to wear a stethoscope anymore. I'm just going to be out in the garden and grow some fruit trees. But clearly the reality is there's always going to be more people to help with on this path.
Well, that brings up a great subject because I remember seeing a podcast from Love.Life Telehealth that you talked about backyard gardening.
Mm,
And can you share some of your insights? And I know you have some nice photos of your backyard and what
sure.
you're doing. Yeah, if you don't mind taking 10 minutes and showing us, that would be great.
Yeah, for sure. I'm a passionate food gardener, and I owe it to my beautiful wife who showed me the way when we first started dating. That you can grow a lot of your own food, and so we have turned our sort of urban size lot in near downtown in Northern California, um, to where there's not you kind of have to walk around things to not bump into a fruit tree or a asparagus bed or some tomato plants, depending on the time of year. And I think we should all be growing a chunk of our own food, and we can do it whether we live in an apartment with a balcony or a place without a yard and just a room for a couple of pots or even sprouts on the windowsill. Because, well, for a myriad of reasons where I could talk for the next hours or two on. But I think it's if I were to boil it down to a kind of a kernel of a summary here, I would say that it's a very great way to habit stack, because I can go out for an hour in the garden, and in that hour I got physical exercise. I was eating, this morning I'm eating grapes off the vine and figs off the fig tree, and persimmons off the persimmon tree while I'm doing my pruning and other things like that. I'm out in nature, and we're learning more and more about the health benefits of being in nature, which is, well, what a surprise, right? We've developed outside in nature for all of our history, except for this tiny little bit where now we spend 90% of our time indoors. And so to get outside and to be breathing the fresh air and getting vitamin D from the sun, it's just all sorts of things happening at the same time, as compared to being on a treadmill on my headphones inside of a gym for that hour. I probably would break more of a sweat on the treadmill, but I've missed out on, I have a pair of sweaty socks at the end of it instead of a bushel full of produce that my family gets to eat tonight and tomorrow. You know what I'm saying?
Nice. Are you able to share some of your photos?
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll share screen real quick.
Yeah, go
Um,
ahead.
and here is
Got it.
okay,
Yeah.
cool. So there's a little mural by our house, and I like showing folks that even though I'm kind of a constant gardener right now, it started off, I had no gardening knowledge, and this was a shot of our backyard when we moved in. It came with some beds that were, they were there.
Mhm.
And this is that was a before shot, and about 7 8 years after that shot is the same view on a sunnier day, but that same view you can't even recognize it because of the stuff that has taken over, with the fennel, which is edible, there on the left, and the
Mhm.
grapevine behind that, and all these other things. Here's another view looking back towards the house with the garage on the left, and that same view now, about 8 9 years after that, was taken with some citrus trees in pots, because they can that's one tree that can do well in pots, and nectarine plum hybrid there in the middle, and some other stuff. And then we had a carport that was just there when we moved in, and we converted that into a greenhouse so that we could continue to grow all 12 months and try some things that maybe wouldn't make it during our winters, but would do better during this time. And I yeah, that's and maybe just a shot a couple of things we grow. I'm a big fan of growing your own greens, because you can pick them almost all year round, depending on where you're at, of course. And a big fan of growing berries, from common things, well, fruit in general, but this is a little section on berries, from fruit in general, um, to some more less common fruits like elderberries on the right and mulberries on the left, currants and gooseberries and things like that. So yeah, those are just a couple of shots from the garden there.
Thank you so much. You're making me
Sure.
hungry. Yeah. Um, I know we have a garden. We live in Zone 5 near the Canadian border. So the citrus is out, but I noticed chards and things like that that grow very well here.
Hmm.
And I can share that, in the summertime, I can go out and eat my salad just by picking different vegetables and eating it right there. And don't need dressing, and it tastes great. Um, do you recommend people buying organic?
So I would say I look at it a couple different ways. If you can grow it yourself, I would say that's the best, right? Because you're pretty much in complete control of what is put on it, other than what nature kind of showers down on it, and that's great to have that control. Because you see sometimes even scary reports where the organic grapes, a certain percentage of them have just sprays from wind blown from the next vineyard over, and things like that. So if you want to be super careful and have the most control, I'd say grow as many things as you can. And but then if you're at the market, farmers market, I would say shop when you can, because it's in season and it's not being shipped from far distances. From just being at the grocery store and choosing between organic and conventional, um, I think so. I try to buy organic as much as possible for my patients. I recommend buy organic when it's financially feasible. And if you don't, uh, if you don't want to buy everything organic, you can focus on the environmental working groups, Dirty Dozen and Clean 15 list that you
Mhm.
might have talked about before, but that's an easily searchable thing, where the Dirty Dozen is every year, I think, year to two, they do a recheck to see what are the 12 most pesticide laden conventional fruits and veg, and the Clean 15 are the ones that are at the bottom of the pesticide residue list, and the ones that are, if you're going to buy conventional, those are often the best ones to do it, maybe because they have a super thick rind that you're not going to eat, they're just a product that doesn't need as many sprays. But when you look at it and you're like, wow, like a conventional peach or a strawberry might have, depending on the study that they look at it, 15, 20, 30 different kinds of pesticides on it. I would say that's not good for the people who are out in the fields doing the spraying, and it's not good over time for us. And so, yeah, I'm a fan of organic when it's affordable.
Um,
But sorry, just I guess I really want to book in that with conventional veggies and fruits are always going to out compete a organic Twinkie or organic Oreo Sundae or something like that. So I would go with conventional non-organic fruits and vegetables over highly processed junk food anytime.
I got it. So it's better to eat a non-organic apple than an organic sausage or something like that. Yeah.
That's
What about, I know one of the things I do is sprouting. I try to have a cup of sprouts, different kinds every different day with a
cool.
little bit of vinegar or something. Is that a good thing to do?
Big fan of sprouts. It's a fun thing to do, say, particularly during the winter time when maybe you're doing less in the outside garden, but you still get that feedback of growing things, and you have the typical method, right, where you just soak them and then you're rinsing them and shaking them every once or twice a day. And then we've tried a method where you just get a shallow dish, like either one of those shallow aluminum bread pans or maybe like a little shallow pot, and put some potting soil in it, soak some seeds, and just lay them right on top, touching, like super, super thick layer of seeds, cover them with something, put them in the darkness for about 4 days, then take them out. They look they've grown a couple of inches, and they look pale and kind of not very appealing. Put them on the windowsill, and 24 to 48 hours later, you have the most lush, great little microgreens, kind of in between a
Mhm.
sprout and a microgreen. Mow them down with some scissors, and they oftentimes will give a second flush. But however you do it, um, sprouts, I think, are a good way to do it. And you're doing it in your house, and you're not worried that they got rinsed with water that had E. coli in them or something like that. So it's a safe way to do it as well.
Is it important to rinse if I don't finish my sprouts? Is it important to rinse them every day?
Well, I
Um,
think sorry.
yeah, no, that's my question.
It goes on, it will depend on your growing conditions. I think, some, if it's pretty humid and warm and the conditions are right for a mold or something to grow on them, then you got to be right on them with rinsing them in a way just to kind of keep them fresh. um so yeah, I think it just depends. And but there's so many great, like, easy quick start guides on how to do it, or find doing a YouTube for folks who've never done them before, that you can just check that out, and it'll show you the recommended rinse rates and all that kind of stuff. But they say that a lot of these sulforaphanes, these really healthy anti-inflammatory, anti-cancer compounds that you see in things like broccoli, are uh, much more concentrated in the sprouts. And so I'm a huge fan of anything in the broccoli, collard, kale, arugula family. And if you're sprouting with things like broccoli seeds, you're getting a lot of those compounds in spades.
Nice. So some of the doctors I've heard from say that your microbiome is very important, and it's very, very important to not just eat correctly, but eat a large variety of different foods during the week. Would you agree with that?
So wholeheartedly agree that the microbiome is very important, and we know so much more about it today than we did 10 years ago. And it seems like, new papers are coming out all the time on it. You hear a lot of the plant-based gastroenterology doctors wax poetic on the microbiome, like Dr. Will Bolshewitz and Alan Desmond, and Robin Chutkin, etc. Really smart docs who have done a lot of work learning about the microbiome. Some of the advice that comes, some of the advice about eating a very varied plant-based diet comes out of a citizen science project called the American Gut Project, and a handful of years ago, Dr. Rob Knight, I believe, was the principal investigator. And when they looked at a whole bunch of stool samples that had been sent in from folks, it looked like those who had the healthiest pattern of bacteria and fungi and viruses, et cetera, living in the intestines, in the large intestine, the healthiest microbiome was associated with eating the greatest variety of plants. And in that study, it looked like 30 was a great number to shoot for, because that had the best microbiome. And I'd say I think about that when I'm out in the garden, because one of the benefits is that you don't just like grow iceberg lettuce, right? You can, if you ever go to a seed catalog and you take a look, there's maybe 30 different kinds that they'll sell of lettuce, or 30 different kinds of kales and things like that. So you can just grow a whole variety of things and pick and go. When you make a salad out of your garden, it tends to be more than, some 50-50 mix in a bag that you would get from the store. It can
Hmm.
be all sorts of things.
Wonderful. So, is your practice full? Are you taking new patients?
Definitely taking new patients.
Okay.
So thank you for asking about that. It's interesting. I've worked in clinics. My whole medical career has been working with the medically underserved, either in the developing world or in the U.S., working in county clinics and what we call federally qualified community health centers. And there's always, there's never enough room in the schedule to see all the patients. And part of that, I think, is because everybody just knows that they go to the doctor when they need a refill on their medicine, or when they sprain their ankle, or they need medicine for their acne or something like that. That's just part of it. And then and it tends to be covered by insurance, et cetera. But lifestyle medicine, even though we're seeing um, these radical recoveries of people dropping 100 pounds and getting off all of their hypertension and diabetes meds, still we're not seeing people knock down the door to get in line. And I think part of it has to do with a systems change that needs to happen, and the word needs to get out, to know that, hey, put a little money down now, and you can save a whole lot of money 10, 20, 30 years down the line by avoiding that first heart attack, avoiding the stroke, avoiding hemodialysis for kidney disease due to diabetes, etc. So,
Yeah. Amen to that. In my sordid past, I was treated twice with stents for heart attacks,
okay.
and my out of pocket was far, far more than all of the lifetime medicine appointments I've had combined by a large margin.
Yeah.
And if if it was available back then, and I can go in a time machine, I would have definitely spent the money and seen somebody. So I applaud you for what you're doing. How does somebody find you?
Well, let's see. If they're looking for an appointment, I see patients like Dr. Scheuer and the other docs on the team that you're
Hmm.
interviewing at love.life slash telehealth. You can just go to a search engine and type in Love Life Telehealth, and
Right.
we'll but if you just want to look at some nice pictures of healthy things coming out of the garden, I do a post about once a week on Instagram, and my handle is at Dr. Jeff Pierce.
Okay. And I know you have a website that I'll put in the explanation when I publish the video. Any questions I didn't ask that you would have liked me to ask you?
I will say one thing that we didn't touch base on was uh, a event coming up in January. The wonderful folks, Scott Stoll and his team at Plantrition Project is coming up with a January potluck, plant-based potluck and community building. And Dr. Stoll's message at the recent conference in Palm Springs in September was putting a focus on just the wonderful things that come out of sharing a healthy meal with good people who are interested in learning more about their health. And so we put one on actually this month at one of our community gardens, Larkfield Community Gardens in Northern California. And so I encourage people, if you are doing the plant-based thing and you know some people who would love more information on it but don't know where to start, or are intimidated about how to cook a vegetable or prepare a stew or whatever it is because they just haven't been exposed to this, a great way to do it is just to have a potluck. And we really enjoyed ours, and we're looking forward to more coming up. And if you want more information on that, you can just in a search engine look up Plantrition Community Potluck, and I bet you
Yeah,
would pop.
I think that's a great idea. In our county, we're in the backwoods of the state of Washington. Is there's one other couple that are whole food plant based, and once a month we get together for a potluck. And I
Mm.
think everybody who is considering that lifestyle, it's a good idea to be in community. And otherwise, you can get really isolated when you're invited to dinner and you can't eat most of the stuff. But these types of potlucks, I highly recommend. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it a lot, and we'll get this published. Remember that Dr. Pierce is licensed in California, Florida, and Texas. As I recall, there are a lot of people in those states that could use lifestyle medical advice. So you can find him and also possibly go onto his website and you can throw him a zinger question once in a while.
Sure,
So
anytime.
yeah, thank you so much. And whoops.